the most beautiful love story between the widowed farmer and the forgotten daughter no one wanted. Ethan lived alone in a small village surrounded by green fields and rolling hills. His farm was modest, but he worked hard every day from the early hours of the morning until the sun went down. He had lost his wife several years ago, and since then, the house had been quiet and empty. Every morning, he would wake up to the sound of birds and the soft rustling of leaves, but there was no laughter, no voices calling from the kitchen, and no warmth beside him in bed. Life had become a routine of work and silence, and although he tried to stay strong, there were moments when the loneliness felt heavy. The villagers respected Ethan because he was hardworking and kind. They often saw him helping neighbors with repairs, carrying heavy loads, or sharing tools without asking for anything in return. But even their respect could not fill the emptiness in his heart. Sometimes, when he sat outside on the wooden bench in front of his small home, he would stare at the horizon and remember the times when his house had been full of love and laughter. Those memories made him smile, but they also reminded him of all that he had lost. A few miles away, in the other end of the village, a small girl named Lily faced a life very different from Ethan's. She had been abandoned by her mother when she was very young, and her father had passed away when she was only 8. Since then, she had no one to care for her. Relatives refused to take her in, calling her trouble and unwanted. People in the village often turned their eyes away when she walked by. She was small and thin, with big, thoughtful eyes that seemed older than her years. Despite her difficult life, she had a strong spirit. She knew she had to take care of herself and sometimes others too. She found joy in simple things like feeding stray animals, helping younger children with chores, and collecting flowers near the river. But still, most days were cold, lonely, and hungry. One harsh winter morning, the wind blew stronger than ever. The sky was gray, and snow covered the ground like a thick white blanket. Ethan was up before sunrise, as usual, feeding his animals and checking the fields. His breath formed clouds in the cold air, and he could see the ice forming on the roof of his barn. Everything seemed quiet, too quiet. He shivered and pulled his coat tighter around him, wishing for spring to come soon. Lily, meanwhile, had been wandering through the village for hours. Her small hands were red from the cold, and her thin coat offered little protection against the wind. She had been searching for food, any scraps she could find to keep herself alive. Her stomach hurt from hunger, but she kept walking, determined not to give up. She remembered her father's words, "Be strong, Lily. You are never truly alone if you keep hope alive." Those words stayed with her, even though he had been gone for many years. As she stumbled near the edge of Ethan's property, she noticed smoke rising from the chimney of his little house. It looked warm and inviting, and for a moment she hesitated. She had learned not to trust adults easily. Most people had turned her away when she needed help, and the fear of rejection made her pause. But the cold was unbearable, and her hunger was stronger than her fear. She took a deep breath and walked closer, hiding behind a tree to watch. Ethan was stacking hay in the barn when he noticed movement out of the corner of his eye. At first, he thought it was a stray animal, but then he saw the small figure peeking from behind the tree. He frowned, curious but not alarmed. Slowly he walked outside, his boots crunching in the snow. "Hello," he called gently. "Are you lost, little one?" Lily froze. She had never been spoken to with such kindness. Most adults shouted at her or ignored her. She wanted to run, but something about his voice made her stay. Slowly, she stepped out from behind the tree, shivering. Ethan's heart softened when he saw her small, fragile form. Her cheeks were red from the cold and her eyes looked tired and hungry. He held out his hand and smiled warmly. "Come inside. You must be freezing." At first, Lily hesitated. She had never been offered kindness without strings attached, but the smell of warm bread and the sight of the cozy fireplace inside the small house were too tempting to resist. She nodded slightly and followed him inside. Ethan wrapped a thick blanket around her shoulders and offered her a warm piece of bread with cheese. Lily ate quickly, her hands trembling from the cold. For the first time in years, she felt safe. Ethan didn't rush her, didn't ask questions, and didn't judge her. He just smiled and waited patiently as she finished eating. After she ate, Ethan led her to a small corner of his home where he had set up a few blankets and pillows. "You can rest here," he said softly. "No one will disturb you." Lily's eyes widened with surprise. She had never had a place of her own, not even a small corner to call safe. She nodded again, too overwhelmed to speak. Days passed, and Ethan and Lily began to settle into a quiet routine. Ethan would work in the fields and tend to the animals, while Lily helped him with simple chores. She learned how to feed the chickens, gather eggs, and even help with the planting. In return, Ethan taught her little lessons about farming, the seasons, and the importance of patience. Though they did not talk much at first, a silent understanding grew between them. Ethan would notice small things about Lily, the way she smiled at the animals, the way she hummed softly while working, the gentle way she would clean the dishes. He felt a warmth in his heart that he had not felt in years. Lily, too, began to trust Ethan more and more. She saw that he was kind, reliable, and patient. She began to share little stories about her past, about her father, and the times she had been hungry or scared. Ethan listened without judgment, offering comfort and reassurance. Slowly, the emptiness in both of their hearts began to fade, replaced by a quiet hope that maybe life could be better. Outside, the villagers began to notice the unusual pair. Some whispered behind closed doors, wondering why a grown man would care for a young girl with no family. But Ethan did not care about the gossip. He had found a reason to keep going, and Lily had found a safe place to belong. Together they faced the winter, the harsh winds, and the cold nights. Together they shared warmth, food, and quiet conversations by the fireplace. One evening, as snow fell softly outside, Ethan and Lily sat near the fire, sipping warm milk. Lily looked at him with her big, thoughtful eyes and said softly, "Thank you for letting me stay. I was so afraid no one would ever care." Ethan smiled, his eyes reflecting the firelight. "You don't need to thank me, Lily. Everyone deserves care and love. You just needed someone to notice." That night, as Lily slept peacefully under the blankets, Ethan sat by the window, looking at the snow-covered fields. He realized that for the first time in years, he felt a spark of happiness. Life had given him a second chance, not just to keep living, but to love and be loved in return. And so, a quiet bond began between the widowed farmer and the forgotten girl. It was the beginning of something new, something hopeful, something that neither of them had expected. In a world that had been cold and lonely, they had found each other, and in that there was beauty, warmth, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. The days turned into weeks and the weeks into months. With each passing day, the bond between Ethan and Lily grew stronger. They laughed together over small jokes, shared stories about the past, and found joy in simple moments like feeding the animals or walking through the snow. Ethan taught Lily how to read maps and count the stars, while Lily reminded him of the beauty in small things he had forgotten. The sound of birds in the morning, the taste of fresh bread, and the simple pleasure of helping someone who needed it. Though the world outside remained harsh and unkind at times, within the small house on the farm, there was safety, love, and warmth. For Ethan and Lily, that was enough. They had found a family in each other, and for two hearts that had known loss and loneliness, that was the beginning of the most beautiful story they could ever imagine. Winter slowly turned into spring, and the days began to grow longer. Snow melted into streams, and tiny green shoots appeared in the fields. Ethan worked tirelessly to prepare the land for planting, and Lily followed him, eager to help. She carried small baskets of seeds, watered the young plants, and even learned to hoe the soil with careful, patient movements. Ethan watched her closely, proud of how quickly she adapted to farm life. He had never had someone to share his work with before, and now even the hardest tasks seemed lighter because they were shared. Lily was happy too. For the first time in years, she felt like she belonged somewhere. The farm was no longer just a place with walls and a roof. It had become a home filled with warmth, laughter, and the simple rhythm of daily life. She enjoyed the sound of the rooster crowing in the morning, the smell of fresh bread baking in the oven, and the soft songs Ethan hummed while working. Slowly, her timid nature began to fade, replaced by a quiet confidence. Ethan noticed small changes in her. She smiled more freely now, her laughter came easily, and she spoke without hesitation. He began to feel a deep sense of responsibility, not just for her safety, but for her happiness. Some evenings, he found himself staring out of the window, thinking about how lucky he was to have Lily in his life. Her presence had filled the emptiness in his home and in his heart. He realized that caring for her was no longer just about kindness. It had become a source of joy and love he hadn't felt in years. Their days followed a simple rhythm. Morning light would wake them early. Ethan would feed the animals while Lily gathered eggs and swept the barn. They would work side by side, and sometimes, without speaking, they understood each other perfectly. It was a bond built on trust and shared effort. In the afternoons, they would sit together in the small kitchen, enjoying tea and fresh bread. Lily would tell Ethan stories she had heard from neighbors or remembered from her childhood, and he would listen patiently, often smiling at her clever observations. But life was not without its challenges. Spring storms sometimes ruined the crops, and the wind could damage the fences. Ethan taught Lily how to repair the fences and protect the animals during storms. He also showed her how to store extra food for difficult times. At first, she struggled to lift heavy tools or carry baskets of grain, but with patience and determination, she learned. Ethan often encouraged her, saying, "Strength isn't just about muscles, Lily. It's about never giving up, no matter how hard things get." Through these lessons, Lily learned more than just farm work. She learned resilience, responsibility, and the quiet strength that comes from facing challenges. And Ethan, in turn, learned the joy of seeing someone grow, the pride that comes from nurturing and guiding another person. Their relationship became a partnership, filled with respect and understanding. One afternoon, as the sun shone brightly and the breeze carried the scent of flowers, Ethan noticed Lily sitting near the edge of the field, her hands resting on her knees. She was looking at the horizon, lost in thought. "What are you thinking about, Lily?" he asked gently, walking over to her. She looked at him with a small smile. "I was just thinking about everything. How lucky I am to have you. I never thought anyone would care for me again." Ethan's chest tightened. He knelt beside her and put a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to thank me. Life is better when we care for each other, and I'm glad you're here. You make my days brighter, Lily." Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them away. "I never had anyone like you before. You make me feel safe." Ethan smiled, a little awkwardly, unsure of the right words. "Then we'll keep each other safe, Lily. That's what family does." As spring turned into early summer, their bond grew even stronger. They planted rows of vegetables together, carrots, potatoes, and beans, and watched them slowly grow. They built a small garden with flowers and herbs, where bees buzzed happily and butterflies danced in the sunlight. Ethan showed Lily how to make simple meals from the produce they grew, and she learned quickly, delighting in the taste of their shared efforts. Villagers began to notice the change in Lily. She no longer wandered alone or looked frightened. Her clothes, though simple, were clean, and her hair was neatly tied back. Her confidence was growing, and even those who had ignored her in the past began to nod politely when they saw her. Ethan, however, paid little attention to gossip. He knew what truly mattered. Lily was happy, safe, and cared for. One day, while working near the river that bordered the farm, Ethan spotted a small, injured bird on the ground. Its wing was bent, and it could not fly. Lily rushed to its side, her eyes full of concern. "We have to help it," she exclaimed. Ethan nodded. "We will, but we must be gentle. Animals trust us when we are patient." Together, they carefully carried the bird back to the barn and made a small nest out of straw and cloth. Lily tended to it every day, feeding it and speaking softly to calm it. Over the next few weeks, the bird slowly regained strength and learned to fly again. When it finally soared into the sky, Lily clapped her hands in delight, and Ethan chuckled at her excitement. "That's what life is like, Lily," he said. "Sometimes it's hard and we get hurt, but with care and patience we can heal and soar again." Lily nodded, understanding more than the words could explain. She felt that same truth in her own life. She had been hurt and abandoned, but now, with Ethan, she was learning to trust, to hope, and to believe in love again. Their days were filled with small adventures. They explored the woods nearby, collecting wildflowers and mushrooms. They watched sunsets together, painting the sky with gold and pink colors. Ethan taught Lily how to read the clouds and predict the weather, and she loved learning about the world around her. They laughed often, sometimes over simple mistakes like spilling milk or stepping in mud. The farm, which had once felt lonely and silent, was now alive with activity, laughter, and warmth. Ethan began to notice that his own heart was changing. The sadness that had weighed on him since his wife's passing began to lift. Lily's presence had brought light into his life, a light he hadn't realized he needed. He felt protective of her, but also joyful, as if caring for her had renewed his own spirit. He found himself planning for the future, thinking about ways to make the farm better, imagining what life would be like with Lily growing up safely by his side. Lily, too, felt a sense of security and belonging that she had never known. She no longer feared the night, the storms, or the cold. She had a home, a mentor, and a friend she could trust completely. She often thought about the people who had abandoned her, but instead of feeling anger or sadness, she focused on the happiness she now had. Ethan had shown her that the world could be kind, that people could care, and that love could grow even after loss. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky with shades of orange and purple, Ethan and Lily sat on the wooden bench outside the house. The air was warm and the sounds of crickets filled the evening. Lily rested her head on Ethan's shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "Ethan," she said softly, do you think life will always be like this, happy and calm?" Ethan looked at her, thoughtful. "Life isn't always calm, Lily. There will be storms and hard times and moments that scare us, but if we face them together, we can make even the hardest times easier. And the happy moments, will cherish them forever." Lily smiled, feeling the truth in his words. She felt safe, loved, and hopeful. For the first time in her life, she truly believed that she had found a place where she belonged. And Ethan, watching her smile, knew that he had found a reason to keep moving forward, a reason to embrace life again. As summer approached, the farm thrived under their care. Animals were healthy, crops grew tall and green, and the house was filled with the smell of fresh bread and warm laughter. The bond between Ethan and Lily had become unbreakable, built on trust, care, and shared experiences. They had faced challenges together, celebrated small victories, and discovered that life, even after pain and loss, could be full of beauty and love. And so, in the quiet rhythm of farm life, two lonely hearts had found each other. One, a widowed man who had thought love and happiness were gone forever. The other, a forgotten girl who had believed she was unwanted. Together, they were healing, growing, and learning that even in a world that could be harsh and unforgiving, love and hope could bloom, strong and enduring, like the first green shoots of spring. The summer days were long and warm, and the farm was alive with the sounds of birds, insects, and rustling leaves. Ethan and Lily had grown closer than ever. They had developed a rhythm, a quiet understanding of each other that made daily life on the farm feel easier and joyful. The vegetables and flowers flourished under their care, the chickens and cows were healthy, and their little garden had become a beautiful oasis. But even as their lives seemed peaceful, the shadows of the past were never far away. One afternoon, as Ethan was repairing a fence near the field, a small group of villagers approached, talking quietly among themselves. Lily had been gathering herbs nearby and noticed the group. Her stomach tightened with worry. She knew that some villagers still looked at her with suspicion, remembering her as the girl no one wanted. Ethan noticed her concern and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry, Lily. Let's see what they want." As the villagers came closer, an older woman stepped forward. "Ethan," she said in a sharp voice, "we need to talk about Lily. She cannot stay here forever. She belongs with her family." Lily's heart sank. She had never known family in the true sense, but she had thought that Ethan was her family now. She stepped back, feeling a cold fear in her chest. "Family," she whispered to herself. They don't want me." Ethan frowned, his protective instincts rising. "Lily has been living here safe and happy. She has everything she needs. I will not let anyone take her away without a good reason." The villagers hesitated, whispering among themselves. Some thought Ethan was too strict, others believed he was right. But the tension in the air was heavy, and Lily felt as though her whole world could collapse in an instant. She had survived hunger, cold, and loneliness, but the thought of losing Ethan, the one person who had cared for her unconditionally, terrified her. That evening, after the villagers left, Ethan sat with Lily by the fireplace. She clutched a small blanket around her shoulders, her eyes wide with worry. "Ethan, what if they try to take me away?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. Ethan held her hand firmly. "No one is taking you away, Lily. You are part of this home, part of this family. I promise I will protect you, no matter what happens." Lily felt a small sense of relief, but the fear lingered. She knew that people could be cruel, especially when they thought they had the right to decide someone else's life. But Ethan's words gave her hope, and she clung to that hope tightly. Days passed, and life continued on the farm. But one morning, disaster struck. A fire had started in the barn, likely from a stray ember from the old fireplace Ethan used to warm the animals. The smoke rose high into the sky, and Ethan heard the frightened cries of the animals. He ran toward the barn, with Lily following closely behind. "Quick, Lily. We have to get the animals out," Ethan shouted over the roar of the flames. Lily's heart pounded. She had never faced such a dangerous situation before, but she didn't hesitate. She ran to the chicken coop first, opening the door and guiding the birds outside to safety. Ethan helped the cows and goats, and together they worked quickly, their hands and clothes covered in soot and ash. By the time the village firefighters arrived, the fire had been mostly contained, thanks to Ethan and Lily's quick action. They were exhausted, but the animals were safe, and the barn, though damaged, could be repaired. As they sat on the ground, catching their breath, Lily leaned against Ethan, trembling. "You were amazing, Lily," Ethan said, smiling despite the soot on his face. "You stayed calm and helped. I'm proud of you." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of relief and pride, not fear. "We did it together," she said softly. "I didn't want to lose anything here." Ethan nodded. "Neither did I. That's why we protect what we love." After the fire, the bond between them grew even stronger. They repaired the barn together, laughing when the paint spilled or when the tools slipped from their hands. Every mistake became a lesson, and every small success became a celebration. Through the hard work, Lily learned resilience and courage. She realized that even when danger appeared, they could face it together. But the challenges were far from over. One morning, while tending the fields, Ethan noticed a stranger watching from the edge of the property. The man was middle-aged, with a serious expression and sharp eyes. He stepped forward cautiously, and Ethan approached him with measured steps. "Can I help you?" Ethan asked. "My name is Mr. Harris," the man said. I am a distant relative of Lily's. She belongs with her family, not living here. Lily froze, her heart racing. She had never known any relatives who cared for her, and the thought of leaving Ethan filled her with fear. I don't want to go," she said softly, her voice trembling. Ethan's eyes hardened. "You are safe here and you are part of this family. No one is taking you away." Mr. Harris frowned. "I have legal rights. Lily cannot stay here forever." Ethan shook his head. "She is not just a piece of paper or a claim. She is a living, breathing girl who has a home here, a family and love. That is more important than any document." The man hesitated, seeing the determination in Ethan's eyes. Lily, feeling the strength of Ethan's words, took a small step forward. "Please, don't make me leave. This is my home. This is where I am happy." Mr. Harris looked at her, then back at Ethan. He realized that no law could measure the love and care that existed here. With a reluctant nod, he turned and left. But the encounter reminded both Ethan and Lily that the world outside their farm could be unkind, and they would need to stay vigilant. In the days that followed, Ethan and Lily focused on preparing the farm for the summer harvest. They worked long hours planting vegetables, tending to animals, and repairing fences. The hard work was tiring, but it also brought a sense of accomplishment. Each day, Lily grew stronger, more confident, and more skilled in the tasks of farm life. Ethan admired her determination and resilience. He had never met anyone like her, someone who had endured so much but remained kind and hopeful. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in gold and pink, Ethan and Lily sat together near the river. They had brought a small picnic, just bread, cheese, and fresh water, but the moment felt special. "You know, Lily," Ethan said, looking at the flowing water, "life can be hard, but the best part is facing it with someone you care about." Lily smiled, feeling warmth spread through her chest. "I know, you have taught me that. I used to think the world was only full of sadness, but now I feel safe and I feel happy." Ethan reached out and gently held her hand. "I promise, Lily, I will always be here for you. No matter what comes, we will face it together." As the summer continued, they faced small challenges, a broken cartwheel, a lost chicken, sudden storms, but each obstacle only brought them closer together. They laughed, helped each other, and found joy in the simple victories. Lily began to help Ethan plan for the future, suggesting ideas for planting and caring for the animals. Ethan listened carefully, impressed by her intelligence and thoughtfulness. The villagers began to notice the change in Lily and Ethan. They saw a girl who was confident, kind, and hardworking, and a man who cared deeply for her. Slowly, the gossip turned from criticism to admiration. People began to understand that what Ethan and Lily had was not ordinary, but something special, a bond built on love, trust, and care. One evening, after a long day of work, Lily and Ethan sat on the porch, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. The world felt peaceful yet full of possibility. Lily rested her head on Ethan's shoulder and whispered, "I'm glad I found you. I never thought I would have someone who truly cares." Ethan smiled, feeling a warmth he had not felt in years. "I am glad I found you too, Lily. You have brought joy back into my life, and I will never let anything take that away." In that moment, under the vast sky filled with twinkling stars, both of them understood something important. Life would not always be easy. Challenges and hardships would come, and the outside world could sometimes be cruel. But together they could face anything. Together they had built a home, a safe haven, and a family. And so the summer passed, filled with work, laughter, and growing love. Ethan and Lily had faced danger, fear, and the shadows of the past, but they had emerged stronger, more connected, and more determined to protect what they had built together. The fire, the strangers, and the storms had tested them, but they had proven that their bond was unbreakable. Through it all, one truth became clear: family is not just about blood or law. It is about love, care, and devotion. Ethan and Lily had found that truth in each other, and it would guide them through whatever challenges lay ahead. Summer slowly gave way to autumn, and the farm was alive with the colors of change. Golden leaves fell from the trees, and the air carried the crisp scent of harvest. Ethan and Lily worked together every day, gathering vegetables, repairing fences, and caring for the animals. Their bond had grown deeper than ever. They were no longer just caretaker and child. They were family, partners in life, and each other's greatest support. The challenges of the past had made them stronger. Lily was now confident, capable, and full of determination. She had learned not only to care for the farm, but also to face the world with courage and hope. Ethan, in turn, had rediscovered joy in life. Her presence had healed the emptiness he had carried since the death of his wife, and her laughter had filled his home with warmth once more. One morning, as the first rays of sunlight touched the fields, Ethan called Lily to the barn. She hurried over, curious. "Look at this," Ethan said, smiling. He held a small bundle of papers in his hand. They were drawings of the farm, plans for new crops, and notes on how to improve irrigation. "I've been thinking," Ethan continued. "We have done so much together, and we have grown this farm into something beautiful. I want you to help me make it even better. You have great ideas, Lily. I want us to plan the future together." Lily's eyes lit up. "Really? You want me to help?" Ethan nodded. "Of course. You are part of this farm, part of this family. I couldn't imagine doing this without you." Together, they spent the day walking through the fields, discussing which vegetables to plant, where to build a new shed, and how to make the barn safer for the animals during winter. Lily felt proud and important. For the first time, she realized that she was not just a helper, but a true partner in life. As the weeks went by, the farm flourished even more. Neighbors began to notice the changes, and their respect for Ethan and Lily grew. Some of the villagers who had once doubted their bond now came to watch them work together, seeing how capable and happy Lily had become. But life was not just work. Ethan and Lily also found time for small joys and celebrations. On weekends, they would gather wildflowers, watch the sunset, and share stories from their past. Ethan told Lily about his wife, about the happy times they had shared, and the lessons he had learned from love and loss. Lily listened quietly, her heart full of empathy and understanding. "You know," Lily said one evening as they sat on the porch, "I never thought I would have a home. I never thought I would have someone who cares so much about me. I used to feel so alone in the world." Ethan reached out and took her hand. "You are not alone anymore, Lily. You have a home, a family, and people who love you, and we will make sure that never changes." Autumn brought with it the harvest festival in the village. Ethan and Lily worked hard to prepare vegetables, fruits, and baked goods for the celebration. It was their first time participating together, and they were excited. The villagers were surprised to see Lily, once the shy and forgotten girl, now walking proudly beside Ethan, holding a basket of fresh produce. "Look at her," a neighbor whispered. "She has grown into a fine, strong young woman, and Ethan, he has done so much for her." During the festival, Ethan and Lily presented their produce with pride. They received praise and smiles from the villagers, and for the first time, Lily felt truly accepted. She realized that she had not only found a home, but she had also earned respect and admiration through hard work, kindness, and determination. One evening, after the festival, they walked through the quiet fields under a sky full of stars. The moonlight reflected on the river, creating a silver path that seemed magical. Lily stopped and looked at Ethan. "Do you ever think about the future?" she asked softly. Ethan thought for a moment. "Yes, I do, and I hope it's full of happiness, hard work, and love. I hope we keep this farm alive and continue to grow together. I hope you always feel safe and proud of yourself, Lily." Lily smiled, feeling warmth in her chest. I think that's exactly what I want too, a future where we are together, safe and happy." Winter came slowly, bringing cold winds and frost. The farm was prepared for the season, and Ethan and Lily worked side by side to store food, repair the barn, and ensure the animals were safe. The hard work was tiring, but it was also satisfying. They had built a life together, and every task they completed strengthened their bond. One snowy evening, as they sat by the fireplace, sipping warm milk, Ethan spoke quietly. "You know, Lily, when I first found you, I never imagined life could feel this full. You've brought so much joy into my world. I feel like I have a second chance at life and love." Lily looked at him, her eyes shining. "And you've given me a home, Ethan, a home I never thought I could have. You've shown me what it means to belong." They sat together in comfortable silence, listening to the crackling fire. For the first time in their lives, both of them felt completely at peace. They had faced fear, loss, and hardship, but they had also discovered joy, love, and hope. Spring returned the following year, and the farm was more beautiful than ever. Flowers bloomed, vegetables grew tall, and the animals were healthy and happy. Ethan and Lily worked tirelessly, but they also took time to enjoy life, laughing at small mistakes, celebrating successes, and appreciating the beauty of the world around them. Lily had grown into a young woman full of confidence, kindness, and strength. She dreamed of helping other children like her, those who were alone or forgotten. Ethan supported her every step of the way, proud of the person she had become. The villagers now admired and respected both of them. They had seen the transformation of Lily from a frightened, abandoned girl into a capable, confident young woman, and they had witnessed the unwavering love and care Ethan had given her. What was once gossip and doubt had turned into admiration and respect. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Ethan and Lily walked through the fields together. The animals grazed nearby, and the farm was calm and peaceful. Lily looked up at Ethan and smiled. "Do you remember the first winter?" she asked softly. Ethan chuckled. "Of course, how could I forget? You were shivering behind that tree, and I was worried you would freeze before I could bring you inside." Lily laughed. "I was so scared, but you made me feel safe. I never thought I would have anyone like you in my life." Ethan smiled, his eyes reflecting the golden light of the sunset. "And I never thought I would find someone like you. You've brought hope and joy into my life. Together, we've built something beautiful." They walked hand in hand through the fields, the gentle breeze carrying the scent of flowers and fresh soil. The farm was thriving, and their hearts were full. They had faced the storms of life, loss, loneliness, danger, and fear, and had emerged stronger, more connected, and more determined to cherish what they had. As the stars appeared in the night sky, Ethan and Lily sat on the wooden bench outside the house, watching the world around them. The quiet hum of life, the animals, the wind, and the rustling leaves felt like music to their ears. They had found something rare and precious, a home, a family, and a love that had grown from care, trust, and shared experience. Ethan looked at Lily and spoke softly. "No matter what happens, we will always have each other. This farm, this home, this life, it belongs to us together." Lily nodded, her heart full. "And we will continue to grow together. We've faced so much, and we've come through stronger. I'm ready for whatever comes next, as long as we are together." Winter came again, but it was different this time. The cold winds no longer felt threatening. The snow no longer felt lonely. Ethan and Lily faced it together, prepared and confident in the love and bond they had built. Their days were filled with work, laughter, and small celebrations. They shared meals, stories, and quiet moments by the fire, always finding joy in the simple things. Years passed, and the farm continued to thrive. The animals grew, the crops flourished, and the house was filled with warmth, laughter, and love. Lily became a young woman who dreamed of helping others, and Ethan supported her every step of the way. Together, they had created a life full of purpose, happiness, and love. And so the most beautiful love story unfolded. Not one of fairy tales or grand gestures, but a story of two hearts finding each other, of trust and care, of healing and hope. Ethan and Lily had faced loss, fear, and loneliness, but they had discovered something rare and enduring, a love built on patience, kindness, and shared life. Under the wide sky, among the fields they had nurtured, and surrounded by the life they had built together, Ethan and Lily knew that they had found home, not just a house, not just a farm, but a family, a bond, and a love that would last a lifetime. And in the quiet of the night, as the stars twinkled above, they held hands, smiled at each other, and knew that no matter what came next, they would face it together, with hearts full of hope, courage, and the most beautiful love imaginable.